This is Grace Cavalieri of The Poet and the Poem, and tonight we are honoring the William Meredith recipients of the 2020 Awards for Excellence in Poetry. Robert Earl Price is the recipient of the William Meredith Award for the Best Book of Poetry in 2020, and his book bears the imprimatur of the Meredith seal. Herb Martin has won the Publication Award for a premiere of a new book of poems. And so each of these poets are going to tell us what the book's about. They're going to share the books with us, and we're going to hear about William Meredith's legacy. I would like to tell you who Meredith was. William Meredith was a poet laureate of the United States from 1978 to 1980. He was a Pulitzer Prize winner, and the William Meredith Foundation wants to keep his legacy alive by shining a light on the best poets each year that follow the path of poetry. And the first person we're going to talk to is Robert Earl Price from Maryland. And Robert Earl, what's the title of your award-winning book?
The title is Blood Flow.
And just tell us what it's about.
Well, Blood Flow selects points in history, in memory, in music to indicate or reflect our journey that I believe continues in the blood, that the remnants of the very beginning still lingers in our blood, much like the COVID will remain in our blood. So the idea of blood flowing from generation to generation, from place to place, that kind of thing is what fills the book. The book includes a lot of commemorative poems. There are several poems that were written for a specific year in relationship to the birthday of Dr. King. There were other events that have happened recently that have also required comment that indicate specific events, commemorations, let's say, commemorative poems. And because I believe that poetry is about memory, very much about memory, then that's what the book is about,
Yes.
it's memory over period, over time.
Well said, Robert Earl Price. And what are the titles of your other books?
This is my fifth book of poetry. My first book was Blood Lines, Blood Elegy, Blues Blood, Wise Blood, and now Blood Flow.
That's what I wanted to identify. So you have created a canon of work, and each one harks back to the other in tradition and ancestry. And we're so honored to know you. And then Herbert Martin, who is a friend of mine for 40 years, maybe 30. And Herb has been given the award for the publication of a new book of poems. And what is that title and what is the content of that book, Herb Martin?
The title is called Sometimes Say My Name. And it is really a book about an unknown dishwasher that I learned about reading the 1987 issue of Newsweek, which was devoted to people or individuals who had died from the pandemic of AIDS. And his name was William Short. There's a photograph of him and two-sentence description, and it read, "Do not forget me. Mention my name now and then." And so that began to trigger something in me. And for perhaps a decade or so, I wrote poems saying his name or trying to mention him in some kind of way. But I never met this person. I only met him through the Newsweek issue. And So I think in some ways what I'm doing is trying to get his friends to remember him, as well as some of my readers who will sometimes say his name.
That's very interesting, Herb, because you are honoring the least among us. It doesn't have to be a general, it doesn't have to be a king. You are saying that our humanity deserves acknowledgement. And both of you artists are known for that. And that's why we're so happy to be with you today.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to hear a bit of each of these poems. And Robert Earl, take us on your journey. Give us a poem, set it up, and let us know what we're going to experience.
Well, I thought maybe I would read the title poem, Blood Flow. This poem speaks, well, I'll read the poem, then we'll talk. How about that? It's called Blood Flow. Pain and agony calling our names. Pain and agony keep calling our names. We shook off the shackles, but we can't hide the shames. I should have told you all the things I know. I should have told you about all the things that I know. Nothing ever changes till the blood begins to flow. Let our blood dye the rivers and our pulse roil the water with swirls of pink. And when the plastic continents form, when the lush land vanishes and the survivors are stranded between paper and plastic, astride that splintered moment until the blood knot is untied and the blood flow swells, we were not there, but we were witness to spilled communion wine and young blood mingling in explosive dust. Sunday morning with a homely America where everyone freestyles, surfing the wavy red river. Let the blood flow, flooding the streets of Birmingham. No one saw them, yet everyone saw them. The red rivulets lapping at the ankles of Southern society. Let the blood flow. The salty tide could not be staunched. The crimson curtain was not drawn. Virgin children as etched figureheads, purity nailed to the stately bow. Let the blood flow, black blood, red wine, splashing the likeness of the white man posing as Jesus. Let the blood flow, engaging race men, vomiting the taste of impotence, cringing in the corner, or breaking the dam. Let the blood flow, another numbed brain. Now let the blood flow. Denise, Carol, Addie Mae, and Cynthia, you are ours for as long as our blood flows. We are the things that howl, let the blood flow, crumpled shadows, scratching vinyl, a chill climbing the spine, riding a warped space drive to nowhere and no one to beam us up. Let the blood flow from Stone Mountain. Oh, but you know that speech. Singing guitar man with a belly fire that whiskey can't douse. That a whiskey can't douse, howling about unfinished business outside the plantation's house. So let the blood flow, a red ribbon in the breath of knowing, in the breath of knowing, in the breath of knowing, we the wretched of the earth swear that we shall not, that we shall set afoot a new man. Until then, let the blood flow, let the rivers swell, with the human swill, let the blood flow until we greet new people created with the demands of a self-determined world. Let our blood flow from me to you, from you to yours, until there arises a single tribe of humans, proud and pure as the blood flowing in their veins.
The voice of Robert Earl Price. And it's a passionate, powerful title poem for his book. What did you hear, Herb Martin? What did you hear in that voice?
I heard many, many rhythms that reminded me of folk songs and spirituals, but I also connected, strangely enough, to Birmingham, Alabama. And I don't know, but I was born in Birmingham and remembered that my father decided that somewhere in the 40s we would escape north. And I use the word escape rather particularly because his sister had written to him that come north, you can make $5 a day instead of $5 a week. And so one by one, uh, my father left, and then my mother left, and then I left in December, and so started in 1948 living a different kind of life in Ohio. But I heard all of those echoes coming back to me from that poem.
That's
And
wonderful. That is the spirit you heard in poetry. And so Robert Earl Price has written many books. He has distinguished himself in fiction, on theater, playwriting, poetry, was the artist in residence at Washington College for 10 years. And are you still heading the Kent County Poetry Festival? I know the
Yes.
COVID has put a stop to it, but is that going to resume, Robert Earl?
Well, we will do a Zoom version this April.
Oh,
As April is the month of celebrating poetry, we usually do it in April. So we're going to do a Zoom version with Jericho Brown as our main poet. And
my fave rave.
yeah.
I've interviewed him. He's wonderful. So now we're going to turn to Herb Martin, whose book received the publication award. And Herb is the author of 7 books of poetry. He has been honored by the state of Ohio every time you turn around, the Governor's Award, the Arts Award. And he is now going to premiere a new book. Give us 2 poems to begin with, because they are small fragments.
yes, did you say 2?
Yes.
Okay. This is 5 in the series. Jesus was a bright and mercurial savior. He dressed himself in human affliction and prepared himself to suffer old Eden's rebellion. Look how they rewarded him. They slapped him with human spittle, hammered his skin to public wood, rubbed his tendons beyond the pain we experience as humans, speared his blood and watered the ground and made it sacred. Who is there to take on the war of the night? Who is there to keep away fear when death comes as a surprise? What a diligence, and what a diligence there was when he was crowned with thorns and ransomed the night. This is number 10. And it is a discussion between himself and his mother. Mother, I have made a gentleman's agreement with these curtained windows and these papered walls where the sun instills imaginary shadows. The wind gives them shape and the dust buries them in the house as well as we all come and go freely. Shape is the promissory note. I move severely through these rooms, which are not of my making. This place is a carpeted bargain. I say what I need to say. I have kept faith with this shelter, the walls, the floors. I keep no secrets from them. I have shared everything with them in the light of day and the dark of night.
Herb Martin from his new book. And the title is what, Herb, tell us again.
Sometimes say my name.
You have. So we follow the odyssey of a man who's been surprised to learn that he has AIDS. And
Yes.
then the book is the disintegration of a human being, but the reflections and ruminations and the spiritual elevation as the body has its demise.
Yes.
What did you hear in that, Robert Earl? What did you hear in that?
Well, I heard, first of all, there is something evocative of empathy from the hearing of those words. And then word choices were so startling and satisfying that I was trying to capture one image and another one would come and another one would come before that image sinks in. And I'm so anxious now to see it on the page and read it, and so I can capture all of the images. But it was beautiful to hear. And I'm
Yeah.
glad I had a chance to hear the poet read it before I
You
get a
can't do
chance.
better than that, to say one image tumbles upon another image. Now, I was thinking about what Herb Martin said about coming from Birmingham. Now, you came as a little boy on the train alone at 10 years of age. Is that right, Herb?
That's correct.
And so, Robert Earl, where were you at 10 years of age?
At 10 years of age, I was in Atlanta.
Were you a native of Atlanta?
Yes, or my parents moved there when I was 18 months old. So you might as well say I'm in Atlanta. I was born in Virginia, but 18 months later, my parents moved to Atlanta. And so I grew up, all that I ever knew was Atlanta.
And what do you, you're in the southern shore of Maryland now on the water.
Yeah, on the eastern shore of Maryland, the land of Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass. Both of them escaped from the eastern shore of Maryland.
That's right. And Alex Haley has made his mark here in Annapolis and these parts. So Maryland is also rich in history. And you both are such working poets, both so productive. Tell me this, Robert Earl Price, how do you start a play? How do you begin it? Or let's take a piece of screenwriting. Do you start with location or do you start with character?
Well, I'll be very frank with you. The original screenplays that you start with is simply a film you begin to see, or I begin to see, a film that I would like to see, that I would be willing to pay to see. And then I try to realize how I would make that manifest. And that, of course, means first the script and then the selling of that in Hollywood, which is the difficult part.
But you won the William Wyler Playwriting Award
Yes.
for the best film. And so what was the name of that?
Well, this was a thing called Polished Ebony that I did as a student at the American Film Institute, which is one of the best film schools in the world. It's located in Los Angeles. And David Lynch and 1,001 other Oscar-winning people have been alumni from the American Film Institute. And when you talk about NYU, USC, UCLA, and the Republic of China, the fifth school is usually mentioned, and not necessarily in that order, is the American Film Institute.
So you took what you learned there and made an award-winning piece. And even though you say it was a few years ago, it still has to feel good, right?
Well, acknowledging the risk and work in creating things of beauty, yes, it's nice to be appreciated for doing that.
And it's also nice to be given reason to go on.
Oh, absolutely.
And we do.
Absolutely. Encouragement. In fact, I tell my friends that every time I was ready to throw it in and go for a career job like the post office, I immediately received something in the mail. Sometimes even a rejection slip that was encouraging. One of my
God does.
prized possessions is a rejection slip from Toni Morrison, and it's beautifully written. And even though it's a rejection slip, I prize it because it's
I don't
from her.
blame you. Wow, that is incredible. Toni Morrison, the best, the best, the best.
Yeah, and this
Now,
is when she was an editor at Random House. Yes.
that's right. That's right. Herb, you are renowned for your association with Paul Lawrence Dunbar. And
Yes.
I don't know how many people know this, but you produced a book of his unpublished works. That is a significant indentation on civilization. I
Well, you're
nothing.
awfully, you're nice to say that. I tend to think that he had a hard time uh, getting people to understand that dialect was a kind of private language for the community. And I think that it is still alive and that people respond to it because there is a humanity there. And so just trying to find what he had left undone was a decade worth of work, but I enjoyed it because I found so many gems that were just sort of left lying in his table and needed to be seen by and heard by people.
Both of you should have your name said every day, not once a year. Herb, give us a couple more poems and set them up for us and tell us the state of mind of this speaker as you read to us.
Well, one that I'm going to read takes place with the mice running through the house, and I think that one of my neighbors has had to have the squad come and get rid of mice because they got into her attic. So it's sort of predictable that somehow or other the outside will invade the inside and the inside will try to invade the outside when we go out to plant flowers and what have you. But this one is um, way in near the end, uh, and it goes like this. A rat gnaws at the brilliance. It threatens the flesh tree, but the itch of an old presence remains. It is something uncontrollable and cannot be executed or put to death by the sharp rub of fingernails. Voracious partner, I leave you unnamed. I ask that you remember me and that you say my name from time to time. And that one, I did, and I have another short one, which I will conclude because we are 2 days from Easter. And this is the way I put these two together because I thought that thematically they worked. I say my name. I say my dying is a prison no longer. I have no fear of it. I have seen a bright and capable light. It has it has dismantled all my personal fears. This Easter morning, when the Roman seal was broken, it spoke of the person who had been placed there in the tomb. Something otherworldly had broken the seal, demonstrating spirit cannot be contained by space or time. I keep faith with an invisible kingdom where faith is an invisible and indivisible reward.
Mm. Amen. Amen.
And bravo.
Thank
Robert
you.
Earl, let's hear another poem. And
Oh,
remind our listeners about the book, which won the William Meredith Award for the best book of poetry in 2020.
okay, well, the poem that I'd like to read is called Atlanta Autumn. 1987. And I wrote this poem in 1987 and didn't get it published right away, and more or less left it in a drawer and have pulled it out and edited it, but didn't think to publish it until now. But I did have it ready for print and ready for the book prior to the Floyd incident. But this is 1987. Here we are 30 years later, and the difference, I guess, that there is actually a trial taking place today. Anyway, the poem. Atlanta, autumn 1987, for Eddie Lee Callahan. When the September wind shifted, Eddie began to sniff the rich, shitty scent of drained rice paddies. He knew better, but the whir of playground jump ropes churned like chopper blades. Something was strange. He could smell hooches, hear choppers, see defoliated trees. He listened for incoming rounds because this was like Nam. So Eddie ran. He ran across cement rice paddies, through yellowy napalm grass to the city's free fire zone, ran home to the projects, Me Lai, Wounded Knee, Carver homes, Gook villages begging for police action, and the police came looking for action. Eddie had seen into their hearts and minds, and he had seen their orders and knew that only body count counts in ghetto war zones. Invaders trained to kill, they came to search and destroy. They came on gunboat feet, crushing the pale straw, and where they crept, shutters closed like averted eyes. Orange and brown veiled leaves pressed their faces against cold chain link fences. The pine trees tried to hide their half-clad sisters and brothers. Eddie ran to the rock, but the rock couldn't hide him. Leaves and grasses tried to call him back. Eddie, Eddie Lee, man, hey man. But Georgia Justice answered, no, no, no. 6 times the trees called to Eddie Lee, and the city's finest answered with Talmadge lips, never. 6 times never. Cause the city too busy to hate was now too busy to take prisoners. The murdered vanished with the chalk outline of the grotesque sprawl. A life tumbling in space, a man on the ground. They melt into black body bags, ornate caskets crowding colored cemetery plots, still as obituary ink, pale as frosted pumpkins. Eddie Lee is a bloody stain at the taproot of our sacred tree. In Atlanta, the brick red earth has embraced Sergeant Callahan. The wind has risen. The trees let go skeins, a swirl of color woven into a shroud to inter the city's shame.
That's Robert Earl Price from Blood Flow. Tell us who Eddie really was. It's a true story, right?
Yes, Eddie Lee Callahan, who nobody remembers, even in Atlanta. I doubt you could go to Atlanta and find people who outside of the projects who remember him. Eddie Lee Callahan was a Vietnam vet and a maven of the projects. And the police went into the projects on a drug raid, ostensibly. Eddie Lee saw them and ran. And when he ran, he was accosted and shot 6 times in the back at close range, and no trial was ever held. I think they lost about 2 weeks' pay.
Wow. At least we have the poem, which will last longer than Eddie did.
Yeah.
And that poem, that's the poet's job, to vindicate. The poet's job is to provide the conscience for the experience. So we thank you for that. What triggers, we see, Robert Earl, that an incident triggers a poem. What else triggers a poem for you?
Well, anything that makes me feel, I am naive enough to believe that some other humans will feel it also. And so those things that move me, I comment on often in search for solidarity. Am I insane? Am I the only one who thinks this way, felt that way? Well, I'm going to be open enough to tell you how I feel and hope that that mirrors enough of humanity that other people in humanity will begin to tell you how they feel about the circumstance.
Oh, that is the secret of keeping us less lonely.
Yes.
Because the writer's job is to say what other people just think. That's a great explanation. Herb, what triggers a poem for you? We heard that the next door neighbors, mice, might even touch off a work of art. But what else? What else do you rely on?
I rely on the rhythms, and that it's mainly based on the pulses that one feels in one's body. You hear that sense of rhythm, you hear that sense of moving, flowing through the body as one takes a step and another step and another step. And so it is in some ways motion that creates the idea. But it's the thing that keeps us going, but it's also the thing that keeps us alive and well, I think. So
It's the only way to live is to be awake. I agree. And I know Robert Earl has done work for the stage and you have written operas. And I think a text was just produced very short time ago. You had something produced just last month, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I had a concert aria that was produced in New York, and now the second one is about to be recorded and played sometime at the end of this month with a young soprano from the Metropolitan Opera. So I'm very happy about that, and I'm just waiting. Her name is J apostrophe AI Bridges, and I know what I have as I translated from the French, but maybe she's saying I have bridges to cross and more bridges to cross, but I'm not really sure. I'm just adding that, but I'm waiting. She has a lovely voice, just exquisite.
Aren't you fulfilled?
And so I'm pleased that somebody likes my words, and they hear the rhythms and they hear the sounds, and they can communicate the melodies that I have heard only in my ear. But you know, the good composers connects with that you have given, and so does the singer. And so I'm sort of standing in the wings, just waiting for them to hit the right keys and to sing the right notes. And that's my job is to do
Will
that.
it be available for us to hear?
Yes, you will. I'm sure that it will be able to be connected with at the end of the month.
Okay, we'll be
So
doing some PR around that for you.
Thank you.
We're so proud to know you. So,
Well,
Robert Earl, what was the last thing you saw of yours on stage?
Well, last thing was a short play done here on the Eastern Shore called The Unlading. But the musical, I think, is what you were referring to, is a musical created here in Chestertown called Red Devil Moon. And Red Devil Moon is a musical that Pam Ortiz provided music for. I provided a book. And it is a story about the Great Migration, but done on a microscopic level. It depicts the plight of a young couple trying to make the decision to leave South Georgia in the 1920s. And we adapted this from a portion of Gene Toomer's famous Harlem novel Kane.
And
And
it
we
is
took it to the
splendid.
New York Fringe. We've taken it to the New York Fringe Festival. It's received quite a bit of acclaim, but we haven't gotten the angel that's taken it all the way to Broadway yet.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it on video and it is worthy of Broadway. Oh, those actors. They couldn't have been local actors, were they?
Yes.
Wow, it's dynamite. So maybe we can share that someday with Herb and we can do a swap.
Yes.
And so let's hear a poem from you, a final poem, Robert Earl.
Oh, okay. Don't explain. We know that you have felt them, tremors of doubt disturbing your point of view, and racing imagination whizzing past you, flashing blue lights and the mall of stop and frisk, where our souls get felt up in the blinding rays of irrational and personal intrusion on our peopleness. Say, dark people of the selected ebony caucus, why is your dance so feeble, all dressed up in designer finery, profiling like freedom is what's really going down on MLK Boulevard? Packaged leadership feasting on a stillborn thing, a promise that was never drawn. It is better to believe that people will be free and equal someday, or to conclude that equally shared power and respect isn't going to happen. To the right, we ask when is the shared humanities to begin? And to our allies on the left, we asked, what is your plan? What is your plan?
The voice of Robert Earl Price, recipient of the William Meredith Award for the Best Book of Poems in 2020. And we're going to end with two poems from Herbert Martin, who is the William Meredith recipient of publication.
This is one of the poems that comes to me because my mother this week suffered a stroke, and subsequently from that, she went to visit a friend, and she felt poorly in the hospital. So the doctor says, you should stay in the hospital. My mother, being the incredible woman that she was, figured a way to get herself out of the hospital and home. And so she did that. And then 3 days later, she decided she was well enough to go to work. And of course, that was when the stroke came. And so I said to her, you shouldn't call and ask advice from Jesus, because the doctor was there and he was telling you what Jesus wanted you to do. And you figured a way out of the hospital anyway. So you can't not pay attention when the answer comes to you, whether it comes from far away or very close by. So this is a poem called My Mother at the End of Her Days. My mother at the end of her days could not see to write her name on the dotted line. She could write her name. It was the line that caused trouble. She had a sweet name I cannot deny. So many communal ancestors died trying to learn how to write. How could impatient haste deny her the opportunity to honor those dead she would soon face? I was not the best counselor in those failing days. Time for the banker was golden and mighty. Still, he could not afford her the time it took to place her name on the dotted line the law required. She was forced to set down slavery's strong X. With those two improper strokes, all of her joys were denied. I wept that act set a longing in her heart and took from her hand an accomplished task she had learned long ago. I am far from that clinical day and the impolite act I was forced to commit against a love removed and dying aggressively of cancer. So that one, I'm trying to remember all of history and the struggle that many people had learning how to read and write. And some people took their lamps into the bedroom and learned how to read by the light of the lamp. And some other people got to school and some did not. And all wanted to know how to sign their names, and that was one of those things that my mother had learned how to do. But given the cancer, which attacked the eyes and the nerves in the eye system, so it made double lines on the page. So she could not see how to do that. And of course, the strangeness of all of this was happening. I'm caught between my mother and the banker. And the banker is saying, can you get her to sign an X? And I said, but my mother knows how to write her name.
Oh,
What we could have done is white out the line and let her write it any way she wanted, and then put a line underneath what she'd written, and it would have been signed. But given the stress of the moment, you never can think of those answers. I thought of the answer long after my mother was gone, and thought this would have worked, or why didn't we think of that? And I think it was just the stress of the moment, and her being hospitalized. So,
but what you do is to document the human heart in
yes,
all of its poses. But both of our poets here today have really made permanent humankind. And we are so thankful. And
well,
I wish to thank for the William Meredith Foundation. I wish to give you our love and thank you. We will be hearing more from your work again.
thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.